We are doing the most exciting experiments right now. We're using ultrafast lasers to make nanoparticles of catalyst to grow carbon nanotubes.
And one of the most exciting things that we found is the amount of control that we have over structuring or actually nano and microstructuring of the thin film after the laser pulse. And from that, we learned that we can make nanoparticles from the radiating thin films. So we melt the film, and it flies off of the substrate, hits another substrate, and it recrystallizes. And what we're trying to understand is, after we've seen these amazing control of both the nanoparticle size, and we've even created new shapes of nanoparticles, how did they recrystallize?
Nanoparticles don't really talk to you until you get down to their level. And how do you do that? You do that with high resolution microscopy techniques or even spectroscopy techniques. High resolution techniques like scanning tunneling microscopy, transmission electron microscopy, or scanning transmission electron microscopy that lets you actually see individual atoms.
My name is Michael Aberration, and I've wanted to be a materials scientist since before high school. My grandfather was actually a materials scientist for 3M. He made their auto-grade double-side stick tape and actually did material selection for the moon landing. So he would always come by our house with the latest new toy that the company was going to be putting out to market. So I grew up with a lot of enthusiasm for the subject. Well, actually, I've always been sort of a seeing is believing type person, so when I was growing up, we always talked about how the atom was the smallest possible bit of matter, but I'd never really seen an atom, so I wasn't so sure they existed. But now with the new CS-corrected STEM, we can actually get direct imaging of the atoms, and I can say, yes, I've seen atoms, which makes me one of very few people in the world that has.
So what's really fun these days is we can actually probe the atomic structure of crystals. We can actually see individual atomic columns. We can see individual atoms within those columns because some of those atoms have got a higher or low Z than the rest of the column. And so you can actually see the individual images because the electrons are scattered proportionally to how heavy the atoms are. So you can see these fuzzy little white dots on the screen that are actually atomic columns. So you can look at the crystallography directly in the images. And the great thing about these images, okay, so you're looking at these individual atomic columns. We're actually down in the picometer regime. These days we don't do nano, we do pico.
My research is on graphene and carbon nanotubes, which are one-dimensional and two-dimensional crystals. So some of our projects revolve around trying to influence the crystal structure of graphene so it has better conduction. Another one of our projects where we're growing carbon nanotubes, we're trying to alter their crystal structure by changing the nanoparticles that they're grown off of.
So why should MSE students study crystallography? Why should they care about it? Well, the answer is quite simple. First of all, the fact that they're crystals mean that they have symmetry. Without symmetry, we can't do a lot of the mathematics that are needed to understand the physics that underlie those structures. The second thing that's really important is the fact that they're crystalline makes them a lot easier to characterize. It's very hard to figure out where the atoms are in an amorphous material, but much easier and very possible if it's crystalline. And finally, the third reason is that crystals dictate the properties of materials. Take carbon, for instance. Graphite is crystalline, but it has very different properties than diamond, which is also carbon. Diamond has a diamond structure, graphite has sp2 bonding, it's a graphitic structure. Finally, you can roll those up into carbon nanotubes, into buckyballs, or lay them flat as a single sheet and you can make graphene. All of these things have wildly different properties, and it's all a function of the crystallography. So, as you go through your career as a material scientist or an engineer, or any kind of engineer, understanding crystallography can be the key to being able to make new discoveries, solve problems, and have a good time with engineering.